Hello, everyone, and welcome to Webinar Thursday with us here at DealerOn. The weather has been so nice here in Seattle. My kids and I have been spending so much time outside, but I'm excited to be here at my computer to spend an hour with all of you nerding out on SEO. My name is Erin Zabarak, and I'm your host and the Director of Marketing for DealerOn. I'm excited to be joined today by our Director of Search and Social, Jake Lassick, like classic. He told me I remember. Jake,
Yeah.
welcome. Welcome to the
Hey.
First Timers Club. It's your first of many DealerOn webinars. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk about SEO. So I'm ready to go.
Yes, perfect. Well, thank you. A few logistics. I still see people joining. We're going to give everybody a minute. We are recording the training today, and we will send you both the deck and recording after the webinar. If I remember, I will try to add a link where you can access the deck here in the Zoom. If I get distracted listening to Jake, you're all in charge of reminding me to post it in there. You should see that Q&A section here in Zoom. I will be monitoring that, and we will answer those questions throughout the presentation today. Last month, it was crazy fun in there. So many good comments. I know SEO can be a bit more of a daunting topic, so it might not be as rowdy in the Q&A section, but still hang out with me, post your questions as we go along so we can answer those in real time. All right, let's get started. SEO, it's one of those topics that I think we all know is super important, and for all the reasons we already know. Your shoppers are, of course, starting their research online, but in most cases, that's on a search engine, which means showing up there is critical. That's what SEO does. I remember 20 years ago, all you had to do to be good at SEO was slap every local city name into the footer of your homepage. You called it a day and you did SEO. Things are a bit more complicated in 2025. For most of you, over 44% of your website traffic is organic, which means they found you on Google, they found you on Bing. This is why a strong SEO presence is important, and it's why you're all here today. So, Jake, you promised me you wouldn't get too nerdy today. I'm going to hold you to it.
Yes.
Let's
Yes.
start with the basics. Let's talk about the different types of SEO and the focus areas for everyone.
All right. Awesome. So when it comes to SEO, there are two types that you're going to face. You have local SEO and traditional SEO. Traditional SEO is more on the national index and it's treated a little bit differently than local is. What's important for your dealership is going to be that local SEO, which is what we're going in detail on today. It's making sure that you're optimizing your website so it shows up for a particular geographic area, most likely the area your dealership's located in. So when it comes to that local SEO, there are a bunch of different ranking factors to consider in two different parts of the local search algorithm. The first are your map pack ranking factors. So you can see that image there on the left. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. Whenever you search something like plumber near me, dealership near me, you'll get the list of businesses near you that show up. And then you can engage, call from there. You can visit the website, look at the Q&A. So there are a bunch of different signals that feed that and help you show up higher in the results there. The three that I want to talk about right now, and we'll go into detail on all these as we go through this today, but the top three are Google Business Profile signals. So that's the actual Google Maps listing, how full it is, if it's optimized properly. Then you have on-page signals, which are signals coming from your website itself, the website you have connected to that maps listing. And then you have review signals, such as how many reviews you have, how diverse are they, what's your average rating, and how many you're getting over a consistent period of time. To contrast that, there's a second piece of the local search algorithm that are called basically the organic ranking listings, right? These are those blue links that you see underneath or next to that map panel. They have a completely different layout on what matters for those. Over half of what matters for those blue link listings are coming from on-page signals and link signals. On page again, it's the parts on your website that you can control. You can change the UX, making sure you have a good user experience, good UI, properly optimized URLs, good internal linking. Then the other part of it are those link signals. So other websites linking to your website and basically giving a vote of confidence to Google that you're a trusted website and you do what you say you do. So we basically take all these different signals and we can break them down into 4 pillars of SEO. The first pillar being on-site SEO, which we've kind of touched on already, signals from your website, the content on it, the code on your website, things like schema markup, which we'll talk about. The second is off-site SEO. These are your signals from other websites, those backlinks from other sites pointing to yours, citations, which we'll get into. Third is social media signals. So these are kind of like legitimacy signals to Google where they want to see you have an active social profile. And there's some pieces of this that come into play with some of the other smaller ranking factors that we're going to talk about. And then the last pillar is reputation management. So signals from review sites, the biggest one being your Google Maps listing. We want to see you get consistent reviews, good reviews, and that they're getting engaged with. And we'll talk about best practices there as well.
So Jake, on these four, and you're going to hear this question from me a lot.
Mhm.
We know dealers can impact social media and reputation management, of course, but with on-site and off-site, what I want to make sure we're focusing on is what is impacted by the dealer? Like, what should the dealer hands-on keyboard be doing in their marketing office as a general manager versus what should the website vendor and an SEO partner be doing? So on-site and off-site, as you go through this, and even now, if you want to give a high-level answer, what should dealers be focused on versus the vendors?
Yeah, I mean, at a top level, one of the best levers that a dealer can control out of these is going to be the kind of content and images that they have readily available for social media, which, any good partner that's managing your social can take that and prep it for your social media, schedule it for you. And then reputation management, as far as asking your customers for reviews and trying to engage your customers to leave feedback, and then your vendor should be able to help you with responses to those and keeping track and monitoring them.
Perfect. Okay. And all the data you just shared, is that DealerOn network data or is that published from somewhere?
That is from third parties. Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah, perfect. So yes, we've got sources that we can share. I just got that question, so I wanted to make sure we're backing up our numbers.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. What's next?
All right. So now we get to really get in the weeds, which I'm excited about because I could talk about this all day. So we're going to work through each of those pillars and talk about some things that you can be doing on your website to try to service that pillar and that part of the algorithm. First is on-site SEO best practices. So when people are searching, you can kind of categorize the keywords that they're searching into 3 different categories: informational, transactional, and navigational. Informational are queries that are usually what we call long tail queries, where people are asking longer form questions. The example here is, what's the cargo capacity of the Ford F-150? Transactional are more users who are ready to complete an action like a phone call or a form fill on the site where they're ready to buy. For example, leasing a specific model if they search that. And then last is navigational. These are queries that users put in whenever they really intend to drive to a business. So if I search Dallas Toyota SUVs or Dallas Toyota dealer, that's a navigational search. And so a good on-page strategy, a good website strategy for your SEO will kind of cater to each of these and try to drive users from that top of the funnel down into that navigational piece of the funnel. So to go more in depth there, what can you do on your website? What can your vendor do on the website to help with these things? First off is looking at all of your websites, title tags, meta descriptions, the content on the page, the URL structures, and making sure that they are optimized to target those keywords that are really important for that consumer journey. And the second is bolstering your topical relevance of your website. So Google, when they crawl websites, they crawl all the code, all the information on it. They go through each link and it gets an idea of what a page is about. And so you want to make sure that the pages that you're building are relevant to the keywords you're targeting. So that Google understands that you want those users to find your site. And then third here is to write for a user flow that begins with the searcher looking for a specific make or model, feature of a car, or a comparison between models. You can kind of take people who are looking for that information and sway them one way or the other and push them deeper into that funnel. And then of course, making sure that you're, on all levels of your site, you're catering content to each of those different search types.
Perfect. Jake, we get a great question from Tony. What does an optimized meta description look like? Because I think
Yeah.
optimized is a loaded word.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
right answer?
Yeah, so an optimized title or meta description, as far as the title tag goes, you want to make sure that it's descriptive of the page's purpose and try to include your main target keyword in there. And then for the meta description, you want to make sure that you include that target keyword again and expand on that idea of what the user can get out of that page and entice them to click through from search.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
Thought we were stumping you. I'm getting excited to stump you. So keep the questions coming.
Oh, all right. So I got a little more about on page. And we kind of touched on this in that title tag question, but every page on your site should have a specific purpose. That could be informational, transactional, or navigational. So one thing you can do is go through your site, and if you have a page that you aren't sure what the purpose of it is, you can rework that page to have a very clear purpose, whether it's to drive an action, answer the user's question, or get them out to your dealership. The fifth thing that you want to be wary of, and this is especially true lately, past couple years, Google's been rolling out what's called helpful content updates. Make sure that you're providing unique and useful information to your shoppers. That way they can make an informed decision and you can build trust with them so that when they come in, they're already informed, they already have an idea, and you can help them even further. And then last here is that, especially for those informational queries at the top of the funnel, blogs and info pages are going to naturally be a part of your strategy, but you want to make sure that you're always building those in a way that can create an action, whether it's to call the dealership, fill out a form, ask for more information, or go deeper into the site, like to an inventory page or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. And more follow-up questions on meta tags. Love it.
Yeah.
So two things, should location be included? And then what does that look like on a VDP? Do we worry about length? Because listen, you could get really
Yeah.
granular. So
Yeah, absolutely include the city and state, right? So, new car for sale, Dallas, Texas. Include that in the title and meta, right? That would be your target keyword there. And then as far as VDPs go, really good practice, and this is built into our platform, our website platform for all VDPs, is to include the name of the model, the year, the make, the trim level, append the city and state to it. And then we really like having the dealership name in that title tag. What Google will do if a title tag is a little bit longer is they'll truncate off what they don't think the user needs to see, but they'll still crawl that info to feed the engine information about that title and meta.
interesting. And again, my question is, do dealers need to be worrying about creating the right meta tags, or are these questions to take back to your providers to make sure the websites are doing what they should do?
You absolutely want to take those questions back to your
Okay.
providers. It's really granular work, and your SEO vendor, your SEO partner should be optimizing these things already.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. All right, I'll let you keep going. Love the questions. Keep them coming.
Yeah, awesome questions. I love them. Okay, guess what? I've got more on-site stuff. I want to talk about blogs specifically. So blogs actually, on average, based on our internal statistics, account for anywhere between 10 to 25% of a dealership's organic traffic. And when it comes to blogs, make sure that it follows the same rules as on-site content. Typically, they're going to be more broadly informational and locally topical. Um, and you can integrate some of that localization into the content about a vehicle, right? So let's say you're writing about an SUV. You can include info for users who are like, hey, is this a good SUV for big dogs? Or how well does the Jeep stack up to Denver winters? And that gives you that localization opportunity. And then fourth here is something that we've done over the years is play with blog word count and the style of the blogs. We've noticed, years and years ago, blogs used to do well when they were 5,000 words long. Those days are kind of over, which is good for everybody here, right? You don't have to
Yeah.
worry about writing many novels for your blog posts. Um, but we've noticed that blogs that do really well answer the user's questions very concisely and then expand on that topic further. Google really loves that, especially now with AI overviews. We notice it picking those things up more and more. And then lastly, in I want to take a moment to recognize how important this piece is. Make sure you're internally linking to build authority to important pages. So since blogs are capturing these broader terms, they can drive good traffic, build trust with Google's algorithm, and then if you internally link these to your action pages, so like your inventory feeds, you can actually pass that trust internally into other pages that you want to reinforce and improve performance on.
Yes, lots on blog. I'm the most thankful that 5,000 word blogs are no longer needed since I'm the one who writes a lot of
Yep.
blogs.
Yep.
What about creating? Yeah, a great question. Creating blogs simply to create trust. For example, car comparisons that don't necessarily favor your own manufacturers. So, I think there's a balance. Blogs benefit SEO, of course, but the value to your consumers and just consuming that information, I think is key. I love a good car comparison on your website.
Yes.
Your OEMs provide a lot of information for you that can help build pages like that. But think about what customers would be looking for, and if they can't find it on your site, build it there. Yeah.
Yeah, great, great ideas for that is think about questions you get a lot, like that your sales team gets, right? You can turn that into website content to refer users to or to hopefully capture some search volume there.
Yeah, perfect.
Awesome. We'll keep moving.
Keep going.
Yeah, so one thing that's a little less magical than great content and a little more technical is schema markup. This is basically code snippets on your website that search engines grab onto to understand the context of the site better. It's also called structured data. So there are two that you really want to keep an eye out for and want to make sure that you have on your website. The first is auto dealer schema. This is basically across your entire website and it has your business name, location, hours, address, all of that information baked into it. That way Google can understand and integrate it into their knowledge graph and know more about, where your business is located and it kind of grabs that code and processes that data. And then the second one is product schema. This is really critical on vehicle pages because it lets you build out basically what if you're using a Toyota Camry, for example, it lets you define that exact product name, its features, all of that really nice stuff. And it also gives your website a chance to show reviews for that vehicle as rich snippets if you integrate reviews into that schema. So one thing to check on your sites is see if you're using those schema because they're absolutely critical for
Yeah.
feeding that search engine.
No, definitely. And before we move on, actually,
Yeah.
will you go back a slide? We've gotten more questions on blogs, which I love. Are blogs being impacted by AI summary on Google, do we feel like, or are they still relevant for us?
Yeah. We still see clicks coming through blogs all the time. It's still very popular content. We have noticed that blogs do really well as for being used as sources in the AI overview. Um, we haven't seen quite yet a critical mass impact from the overviews yet. Users are still clicking the search results, but yeah, it's still works very well with the AI overview.
And speaking of AI, and Kim asked how AI was impacting, and I promised her I'd wait to save it so we can keep AI for the end. But does Google or Bing ding content if they know it's created by AI?
I love that.
I
So
would so.
Google has published in their web developer documents or their Search Console documents that good content is good content, regardless of origin. But what they don't want to see is generic content that sounds exactly the same as everything else. But they either way, as long as it's good information, uh, Google Google will treat it the same. I would always
Wow.
suggest anybody using AI absolutely humanize that content.
Yeah.
Don't just ask for a post, put it up. It's probably going to have bad information in it you need to correct and repetitive language. Those are the things you want to avoid.
Awesome. And that makes sense. I mean, that's the thing. I get nervous talking SEO that I'm not smart enough for these conversations, but a lot of it is common sense. I don't care where it came from. If it's information relevant to me, it's
Yeah.
useful. We know that we don't need a novel for a blog. Is there a good word count?
Yeah, we've noticed kind of a good range is 400 to 700 words. We notice really good performance out of that. It retains the user long enough on the site that we get good behavior signals there. But it's also not so long that they just skim through it. And
Yeah.
we notice, for rich snippets and info like that, those concise answers to the burning questions that users have about a model do really well there.
Yeah, absolutely. And remember the ASC specs, you can track things like scroll on a page.
Yeah.
So make sure you're looking at not only who's clicking on blogs, but who's engaging and reading. I'm going to make you go back another slide. I
Yeah.
didn't think I was going to, I honestly didn't think we'd get this many questions. I'm so
Oh, I love
excited.
it. This is awesome. Yeah.
So pictures titled when it comes to Google, should we be putting titles on the individual pictures of cars, or does a VDP take care of that? And if any of this is too much in the weeds, tell me we need to take it offline.
Trying to think what we mean by titles. If we're talking about alt text, yes, you should have alt text on all
Of
your
course.
images for
Yes.
accessibility. Yeah, and Google reads that as well. It's a good place to include your keyword.
Yep. Okay, perfect. And follow up with me, Erica, if we didn't get your answer. I'll make
Yeah.
sure we do. We talked about city in title tags, state. Not as we're talking local SEO. So how important is
Yeah.
state?
Yeah, we do use the state so that there's not confusion on if there's a similar city in another state. It's
Yeah,
just good practice to do that. Because if anybody
perfect.
searches near me, Google will, if I'm searching from Dallas and I search dealer near me, Google knows I'm in Dallas and they're going to show me localized results. So you want to cater that by using that Dallas, Texas in the
Yeah.
content. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so go forward then again to blogs. Good Lord, you all have questions. I love it. Have you seen blog comparisons for makes other than brands your companies carry? So my answer is no, because if it's not going to be, I mean, if it's not going to be something you can sell, I don't want it on my website. That's what I'm thinking. And I might be missing the
So,
questions. Go ahead.
so I would say that comparing to other makes is part of a good strategy, but you want to make sure that you're highlighting yours because
Yes.
if you have those undecided buyers, that's your chance to sway them one way
No,
or the
you're
other.
right. I think in my brain I was thinking, do you want to feature information on a make and that's it and you don't sell it? And the answer is
Oh,
no.
no, 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 no,
Don't
no.
do
Yeah,
that.
compare it
But
to
you're
your own
right.
make. Yeah, compare it to your own make, and yeah.
Anna's gonna think I'm crazy. Okay. Informational pages. Is there a concern that they, like a blog, or if you're doing these comparison pages, that they may draw from outside your area or have national reach, I guess, or go viral in the non-social,
Yeah,
terms of it?
that's a good question. In those circumstances where that occurs, it can help bolster authority, and as long as your internal linking very well to those local pages, you can bolster those local pages even more.
Yeah.
It can help
Perfect.
attract good backlinks, all kinds of stuff.
Okay, perfect. And then I had a schema question in
Hmm.
here. How do you check schema? And
Yeah,
how do you know if
yeah,
your website provider is doing a good job? And I
yeah.
think, and I made you put the picture on there, you view the source code, right?
Yep, you can look at the source code, and then there's a website called schema.org that's kind of the golden standard for schema for every website ever. You can go to validator.schema.org, put your website URL in there, run a test, and it'll show in a side panel what schema you have present on a given page.
Perfect. But ask your vendors, I think, and I'll let
Yes.
you go forward to the schema slide. The basic name, location, and hours, I think everybody's got that managed. But when it comes into that inventory specific schema, that's where
Yes.
I think DealerOn does an exceptional job. We know how important it
Yes.
is, and especially for those rich snippets, which all that stuff at the top of Google that's getting my attention so I don't have to scroll, it's
Yep.
getting your customers' attention as well. So good
Exactly.
stuff. All right, I'm going to let you keep going in the interest of time, but I'm not ignoring anybody's questions. We'll save some till the end here. So thank you.
Perfect. All right, now we'll talk about the next pillar, offsite SEO. Link building, it's one of Google's top ranking factors for local and traditional SEO. So when it comes to link building, there are good links and there are bad links. These are all like votes of confidence to your website, and Google wants to see you have a good amount of them, diversity from different websites in which sites are linking to you, and they want them to be high quality websites. A good rule of thumb is, would I want this site associated with my business? If not, I wouldn't pursue it. But I want to talk more about what a good link is and then talk about what bad links are. So, good links from a local perspective are going to be things like if you're engaged with any local sponsorships like Little League teams, food drives, plays, Boy Scout troops, you can, leverage those relationships to get some links to your website. They have good local presence, right? Google understands that that's a local site linking to another local site. That's a great signal for your website. Charities are also really popular. National or local charities can provide links, but where you can, local is always going to be better than national. Um, and then, we've seen local business partners. So if you partner with any car washes, aftermarket shops, body shops, stuff like that, leverage that relationship to get that link. And then kind of one that you have less control over but can do really well are finding other local blogs and partnering with them to help distribute content to their website. So maybe you want to, help a local blog and write a post for them about, car buying tips, and then get authorship credit and some internal links to your website from that. That's really helpful as well.
Yeah.
Now, there are links that you don't want. If you get caught in what Google perceives as a link scheme, you could get a manual penalty on your site and they could de-index it. So I get these emails all the time in my personal email, my work email, people saying, hey, I can get you 300 backlinks for $20. Don't do it. Don't do it. That's
Yeah.
too, if it sounds too good to be true and too easy, it probably is, and it's probably a link scheme. You also want to avoid links from link sections of other websites. So long time ago, a lot of websites used to do this tactic where they would have a resource page with thousands of links to other websites, and then those websites would link back to them. They'd all link to each other, and Google was like, "Hey, you're gaming our system. No more." So those can get you hurt. Um, Avoid links for overseas websites, right? Try to make sure that they're, US based websites, and try to avoid links that aren't relevant to your business or industry. And then another fun one back in the day was comment section links from blogs, where you could go leave a comment on 1,000 blogs, put the link to your website, and it would help. That'll get hit too now. Google does not like that. And then lastly is automated link building tools. So if there's a tool that you can punch your domain into and it'll spin up 1,000 links, just avoid that, right? Those are not going to be high quality websites and Google might penalize you.
Yep. And the too good to be true is, I mean, it feels like a phishing scheme. If somebody's offering you a gift
Yeah.
card to do something,
Yeah.
chances are not good. But I haven't heard that too much in the dealership world. I think
Right.
I think we get it. You're smart enough where they're targeting you. The smartest people are often the dumbest. So, you never know. But great recommendations here. And again, it's making sure you're already doing these sponsorships. You are already doing the golf tournaments, and it's very charitable. If you don't have a page on your website that highlights that business, you absolutely should. And
Yes.
it's simply a you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Do you mind putting a link to our website with our logo? Fantastic. We'll do the same. So a lot of this is just simply, it's like reputation when we get there. You've got to ask
Yeah.
to make it happen. So
100%.
perfect. Now some of my favorite sections, citations, which doesn't mean
Yeah.
ticket. It's those listings. It's show me where you're at, tell me who
Yeah.
you are. Yes.
So there is a piece, and this becomes really critical in the map pack rankings. This is part of your offsite SEO. There is a little type of backlink, you could think of it, called a local citation that has structured information about your business. A great example is Yelp. If it has your business name, address, phone number, and website, we can consider that a citation. And what's critical with these is making sure that your citations across the web on all these pages like Yelp and Yellow Pages match what Google has on file on Google Maps, right? So first make sure your Google Maps listing is correct, and then you want to go and make sure your brand name matches exactly to what you have on Google Maps on all these other sites. The address is exactly the same, the phone number is the same. If you are using call tracking numbers, make sure to use local area codes. Google Business Profile has the ability to add multiple numbers where you could add a call tracking and your actual local number. I would always suggest doing that. Avoid adding extra keywords to your business name, right? You want this to match your actual business name. And on these listings, there's no need to add more categories than you actually need, right? Only cover categories for things that your business does. And then there are, with all these citations and different websites, you want to make sure you take advantage of extra fields on a per citation basis. So sometimes they'll have a place for you to add promotions, extra features, or, other industry specific things. If you can fill it out, fill it out if it's relevant. If it's not relevant, don't worry about filling it out. But if you can, fill out 100% of that listing, and make sure on all of these link to your dealership's homepage. Don't link to internal pages. The only time you should link to an internal page is if you're using department listings on GBP, where you can have a service listing or
Yeah.
a parts department listing, and link to those appropriate pages there.
Yes, absolutely. I am big. We got to do a Google Business Profiles webinar, I think, this
Man,
year. It's been a while since we've done it. Lots here. There's so many of these pages. I think of the top five, maybe like, oh, nobody's going to go to this random one, right? Well, guess what? Google goes to it,
Yep.
right? And that's why it's really important. I know you've got, oh, I made you take out the super nerdy slide that had the
I
list of
know.
all the places. So this is one of those things that you can Google yourself and you can go down the list and see what shows up, but that is a lot for you. So there are a lot of services out there that can help. You mentioned, you're mentioning a few as we go along, but we'll talk about that at the end, how DealerOn can help with that.
Yep, exactly. All right. And we got a little bit more about
Yeah, a little. Okay,
citations,
good.
a little bit more about citations and reputation as far as Google Business Profile goes. So, excuse me. Besides your name, address, phone number on Google Business Profile, you need to also make sure you have your correct hours of operation. Make sure that you keep the profile active. One thing about Google that is really fun is they want to see you use the tools they provide and they reward you for that. So making sure that you're posting photos consistently, change and refresh them. So if your dealership gets a rework on its sign, post that picture of that new signage, right? Another big thing here is making sure you cultivate a great review score. Uh, most impact on results. Respond to positive and negative reviews, especially focus on those negative ones.
Yeah.
We typically try to get responses out 24 to 72 hours. 24 hours is best because there's a chance for you to mitigate that, and help that customer out and turn that review around, which helps increase that review score, right? You also generally want to have more reviews than your competitors. So a good activity to do is take a look at the other people in your area and see how many reviews they have, and you might need to have a push to ask for more reviews from your customers. Google also has a post feature, where you can share specials, promotions, updates from the business. It's kind of like a little social media widget built into Google Business Profile. Keep that active. Um, and then if you have separate departments for service and parts, you can actually build listings for that and nest it into your main dealership listing. Very good practice there. And then for we'll talk a little more about this, but for anything you're doing online, make sure you have Google Analytics 4 set up so you can track where that traffic's coming from. And you can actually track how many people visited your site from GBP specifically.
Yeah. So this, I love that bottom tip. It didn't even occur to me to follow the social media. And there's a GBP page. It's not just Google's, because God, I can imagine the
Yes, they
post.
have their
Okay.
they have their own social media accounts. Yep, just for that
Awesome.
product.
Awesome. Okay. And a question, and I know you mentioned it. So we should still have main dealership listing, which is sales stuff, and then a
Yep.
parts and a service.
Yes.
What are they? I forget. Nestled under, but
Yeah, it's department listing, or you
okay.
may hear it called a nested listing. And
Yes,
so you build
absolutely.
those, and then your SEO vendor can help engage Google support to get those properly nested. You basically have to build them, and then you go,
Yes.
hey, bundle these together. And then on your main listing, there will be links to those separate listings for each department.
Perfect. Yep. And if done right, you'll have the service reviews and everything on service page, but they all feed up into the main page. But it is a lot. So yeah, I
Yeah.
typed it. I'm convinced we'll do a GBP session
All right.
definitely this year. Yeah, you're on
Love
the
it.
hook. Get ready.
Yep, I'm ready.
All right. Perfect. What else do we have?
All right.
We're moving
We're going to
right
talk
along.
about social media a little bit. So this is one of those weird things that it's not a direct Google ranking factor, but it still sends small signals to Google where if all things are equal, Google does want to see that your business is active online, especially on these big ones like Facebook and X. Um, and then on top of that, you can actually help your SEO where if users click through from Facebook to your website, they get cookied, their activity gets tracked, and there's a part of the algorithm called personalization where if I visit a website because I found them on Facebook to read about their newest blog post, and then later I'm wanting to buy a car, because I visited that website, it gives it a better chance of showing up when I search next if I search something relevant to that site. So there's a little personalization in there. Um, but your main focuses should be Facebook and X. Other networks do have value, but focus on those two first. And once you master them, integrate those other ones. You want to make sure you have a mix of informative, engaging posts with some transactional ones sprinkled in, and a really easy, easy post material that you can have if you're, say you're posting, once a week on your blog. You can use that for your social media, right? You should have an image there, some snippets inside the blog and content that you can repurpose and use for social and drive those customers to that new post. We also recommend using a loosely structured post schedule so that people who are engaged and follow you know when to expect new posts.
Perfect. Okay, wait, I've got social media. Oh, you're going. Nope, you're in the right
Oh,
order. I got social questions. Go to the next slide and I'm going to
yeah.
say,
All right. So, a couple more things here. Make sure other good material for your social feed is any current events, news related to your dealership, your brand, or local events you're involved in. If you are partnering with an SEO vendor who handles social for you, you can absolutely I would recommend sending them posts and asking how they can use those for the social strategy. We noticed that real content, real pictures from the dealership gets really good engagement. People love to see the actual activities going on at the dealership.
yeah.
And then last, don't spam, don't overpost, 20 times a day. People will get annoyed, they'll unfollow or, block the feed. So we typically, maximum once per day. Now, if you have a live event going on, maybe, post a couple more times that day. But in general, try to stick to about once a day at most.
Yeah, that was the question. I think about your own scrolling habits and what you would like to see. And how many times, yeah, of like inventory videos, if you're posting videos of the inventory. I don't want to see three in a row. I've seen, dealerships do a great job. They sell a car. I'm going to take a picture of the new owner and they save them up and then they post 10 in a row. That really decreases the value, of course. And I don't want to see it. I might unfollow 10 in a row. One, I'm going to see and notice. So it's really that using kind of common sense, but also make sure there's value in your posts. Just like with DealerOn, I'm not going to post on LinkedIn, hey, do you want to buy a website? You want to buy a website? No, I better give you some information to help you in your daily life. And then you can buy a website, right? Or then you can add
Yeah.
advertising with us for sure. So great. Let me see what else, what other questions? A lot of GBP I'm answering. Happy new car day pics have low engagement, Tony says. Yep, it feels a little 10 years ago. So it's really updating that content. I think about when daylight savings changes over. Hey, do you know how to update your clock in your car? Here's a good one. Air conditioning information, tips on maintaining your vehicle. Think seasonal and think valuable posts here. Anything else that we missed?
No,
No?
no, it's
We're
perfect.
good. Very
All
smart.
right.
Fantastic.
All right, I will keep rolling and nerding out here.
Colin, love it.
So some fun stuff, pretty new as of March. So GBP has some very fun AI updates that we're keeping an eye on, and I would encourage everybody here to keep an eye out for this as you're doing your daily browsing. So they're integrating some Gemini AI into their maps listings, where users can ask maps about a specific location, and what they're doing is they're sourcing the information for that AI module in the map from Q&A responses on GBP, reviews, and in the website. So make sure you're responding to reviews. Make sure that if people are asking questions about the dealership on GBP in the Q&A section, answer those questions. You can even add your own questions and answers for things that you commonly get asked at the dealership, and that'll help feed that model as it rolls out. The other piece of this is Google's using AI to group reviews by commonly mentioned topics. That way users can kind of have an easier way to find reviews about the topics that they have personal interest in. And then last, that we're still dissecting a little bit is this immersive view that they're integrating to create inspirational collections based on custom searches. So it really looks like, hey, here's some other recommendations of if I'm looking for things to do with my friends out on the town, it'll build a collection of things that I can do out on the town and businesses relevant there. So keep an eye out for that if you see it. Google started rolling it out and testing it, and so that'll be on mobile devices if you see it.
Lots of new stuff coming. I know I've got more AI questions saved, but we're saving them till the end.
Okay.
I don't want the robots to think that they're taking over the webinar anyway. But you've got
Right.
more stuff on reputation, which is more things that dealers can impact themselves, which I love.
Yes. So this is the final pillar of a solid local SEO strategy. The main thing here is make sure you're responding to both positive and negative reviews, but focus on those negative ones with priority. Negative reviews, like we said, try to respond in 24 to 72 hours max. Those responses should address the problem at hand, provide a solution, or at least state what the business is doing to prevent that problem from happening again. And that's your chance to re-engage that customer and have a new conversation with them. We've seen quite a bit of success with, having the customer reach back out to the dealership to mitigate whatever problem they perceived that they had. And I've even seen reviews flip from 1 to 5 stars, which is always awesome when that happens. And then the last one here is, make sure you don't blame the reviewer. I'll use a personal anecdote. A couple years ago, I was looking for a new barber, and I was reading reviews for a barber shop, and I noticed anybody who left a bad review, the owner was arguing with them and insulting them. And guess what? I didn't go to that barber shop. I went to a different one, right? Because I felt like if I had an issue, it wouldn't actually be addressed with care. So you want to make sure around those negative reviews, you have a sense of care and are engaging
Yeah.
that user and trying to get them to mitigate it with you. Some
Mhm.
tools to keep track and monitor when you get new reviews are Moz Local and Reputation.com. There are lots of tools out there you can use, but those are some of the big names that you may be familiar with that can help you track on multiple platforms what kind of reviews you're getting.
Awesome. Yeah, I think how you manage the reviews is important. I took a service marketing class as part of my MBA, and I remember exactly as you said, you can actually earn customers from negative reviews by showing how you respond to them. Because let's face it, we've all read a negative review on some product, and you think that person might be crazy. I think it's the person's fault, not the company's fault. And seeing how the company interacts with them, it's real important. Things that don't help are if every single review has the same copy pasted answer. To me, that's icky as a reader. And there are some fantastic services. Many of the OEMs have reputation programs to get involved with. So lots of options here because this can be a heavy lift. We keep talking about what's the dealer's part in this? What is the provider's part in this? If you're a marketing manager, especially for a larger group, you've got a lot to do. So figuring out how to outsource or manage your teams effectively and build processes. We're talking a little bit about that in the Q&A section right now. So it's really important. Good stuff.
Awesome. All right. And then something to talk about here briefly, good question to ask any website or SEO vendor you're working with is about tracking and analytics. So you want to make sure your provider is using these tools. So one of them is Google Analytics 4. This lets you track traffic sources, conversions, user behavior, how long they're on the site. And the other one is Google Search Console. And this is my favorite tool. I use it all the time. I get lost in it, but it lets you see metrics specific to Google search itself. So, how many times your website showed up for a query on search, how many times your website got clicked for that query or your page got clicked for that query, shows you the click through rates for pages at a page level and a keyword level. And it's very helpful, very helpful.
Awesome. Yes, and we've got fantastic reporting that I know we've talked about in the past, but DealerOn's reporting is continuing to be enhanced with additional SEO reporting for those SEO customers of ours and even more coming soon. So listen, we did fantastic. I was real nervous at the start that we weren't going to have time.
I kept it reeled in. I kept it reeled in
You
today. Yeah.
did. Good. We're going to have time to go back to these 20 questions I've been saving.
Awesome.
So listen, we've talked a lot about a lot. We have some very savvy SEO attendees here today, but for many of you, this is not your full-time job. So here on the next slide, Jake, DealerOn SEO. Yes, we provide SEO services for everyone. Everything we talked about today is something that we support on. So local SEO, that is where we thrive, of course, with automotive. We want to make sure you're ranking on the first page. Expert strategies. We've got a few different ways. We have advanced listings manager that can help you with all of those citation sites, making sure everything is pulled in and updated properly. So lots of opportunity there. I'll have you go forward to the next slide. I've been yapping with Tony here and Elijah, I saw in the chat. They're coming to DMSC. Are you? I'm going to be there with a few of these gentlemen. I'm on a panel that I'm definitely not nervous about. No, I'm excited. We're going to be talking website optimization, which is my favorite thing, but lots of good conversations. So if you're going to be there, send me a note, look for me. I'll be the only woman there up on that main stage with a bunch of gentlemen. So, come hang out. But listen, more webinar stuff. Jake, you're off the hook next month. I'm going to be joined by somebody from Meta. I have a special guest star. We're going to be talking scroll stopping social strategies. Say that 5 times fast. All things social. So we talked a little bit today. We got questions on X. I'm going to make sure that I integrate into that presentation, but lots of stuff. So you'll get the link to register for next month to hang out with me. But now here with these last 15 minutes, listen, if you don't want to stay for the questions, go ahead and keep on keeping on with your day. But let's go down to that next slide. We'll leave it on the big orange. And I'm going to go back up to the top on the questions. So you're going to get a lot of AI. And if there's anything we got to take offline, you just give me the
Yep.
nose twitch and I'll take care of you.
Got it.
How can we optimize for AI bots? For example, if someone is asking ChatGPT or one of those tools about local dealerships, is there a way to make sure you're showing up more?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing we've seen is when it comes to informational content, making sure you answer those questions concisely and clearly. And as far as localization, we haven't seen much yet specifically around GPT, but we are keeping an eye on that. And as we get more information, integrating that into our strategies.
Awesome. Perfect. So lots of question about URL structure,
Mhm.
VDP URL structure. Most of the pages have simple URLs, but some specials are a little fancier. Is there a right or a wrong if they get wonky in there? What's right?
Yeah, with specials and VDPs, it's okay if there's some weirdness in there for tracking purposes, right? Or specific bin numbers, stuff like that. Um, those are typically short-lived enough where they're not, it's not evergreen, right? So if people are searching for a specific model, you just want to make sure that in that URL you have that model name and the year and all that, and that's perfectly fine. And some weirdness is okay.
Awesome. Regarding schema,
Yeah.
is price range a schema item?
Yeah, so that's part of the product schema is the kind of parent schema, and then you have all these other subtopics that you nest into it, and price range can be included in that.
And should be?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Should be included. So we've kind of answered this a bit. Does FA or how does Google determine what qualifies as good content? It's just relevant, right?
Yeah,
Relevant.
user behavior signals, right? Are people engaged with it? So a big part is when I search something and I go to your website, do I go back to search immediately? Do I go back 5 minutes later? Do I go to other websites? So good content should be content that keeps the user on that page or answers their question where they don't have to go back to search, right?
That's a really
Yeah.
great way to explain it. I never thought of that. Yeah, if I
Yep,
don't get what I want and I immediately go, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so just good relevant content.
exactly.
Moving to blogs, does FAQ schema help with questions for blogs?
So that's a tricky one, but I will give you an answer on it. Google used to use FAQ schema to show like FAQ dropdowns in search. They don't do that anymore, but I still think it's a good practice where if you have an FAQ panel on a page, include that schema because there are other search engines besides Google that might pick that up, right? So it is good to use it if you can.
Okay, perfect. Does Google favor sentences more throughout blogs, or is it better for the content to be easily scannable with bullet points? And I'm going to answer with what I do, and you got to tell me if I'm right or
I
wrong.
got you.
I
I
like
got
a
you.
I like a healthy mix. I do like a listicle, but I like action items to be kind of listed out with bullets or at least sections to make it easier I write it for the reading and the reader, not the Google, if that makes
Yep.
sense.
Exactly. A mix is totally fine and in best practice. I mean, where it makes sense to include bullets, like say you're explaining a trim level for a specific vehicle and you want to list those specs out, great place to use bullet points. You might get a rich snippet from it because Google sees that detailed, concise info, and then, expand on that information for the reader, right?
Yeah.
Explain how those specs come into play for the value of that model.
No, fantastic. All right. And internal links. We had this come up a few times in the blogs. There were questions about, oh,
Yes.
how do you keep it from not getting outdated? I mentioned some process suggestions in there. Are there best practices around internal links? Is there too much, too few? What are some of your hot tips?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is relevance, right? So with internal links, if I'm linking to another page, I want to use an anchor text. So the clickable part of that link, I want to make sure that anchor text is relevant to the page I'm linking to. So when Google crawls that, sees the text on the link, they know what the page that is on the other side is about. With that, you can, I would suggest using links as they're needed, right? Using internal links as they're needed. Don't spam 50 links at the end of a page just for the sake of internal linking, because that's kind of viewed as
Right.
spammy. But integrate it within the content where it makes sense and where it adds value to the user.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I've not heard too much focus on toxic links or worrying about disallowing links in Google because Google has now been able to tell that backlinks are spam. Is that true?
Yeah, so Google will auto filter links that they identify as spam. The way you know you're in danger is in Search Console. There's a section for manual actions. You can look there and see if you've been penalized for a link scheme, because it's the internet, right?
Right,
Bad sites are going to pick up yours and link
right.
to it. Google will typically ignore those. The where you want to worry is if you have an unnatural uptick and their algorithms are smart enough to know where, you probably bought a 1,000 link package and they're all low quality websites. That's where you get at risk. And
Yeah,
then,
yeah.
if you have manual penalty, that's where disavows become important to roll out.
Awesome. So moving to kind of community pages and getting those off-site links, we had some fantastic examples that we shared already. Jenny's concern is, and I think it's valid, is she's going to create a community page showing all the organizations we're supporting. But is that considered kind of like a link section? Because I'm suggesting put the
No.
logos, add the links, put a little blurb. That Google's going to know
If
that's okay, right?
Yeah, if it's a real partnership, it's fine.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yep.
And then, you mentioned an example of, I think, one of the dealers that we work with who has kind of a repetitive one. Other ideas, local sponsors or businesses, do we ask them to write a blog? Most of these companies, they have their own websites, of course. They're going to show companies that sponsor them. So it's the same thing. Ask if they've got a section where it shows sponsored companies, or if they are posting a blog about an event that you sponsored, listing your information and your link in there. So it's truly just asking and talking as you are
Right.
agreeing to the sponsorship. Hey, are you going to put something on the website? Can I send you my logo ahead of time? I'm helpful, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, good local link building is really relationships, right?
Yeah.
It's talking to those organizations and your contacts there, and blog is a great example, right? If you're partnered and they have an active blog, you could have a highlight about that partnership on their blog. It's a great link.
Yeah. Kevin's got just an answer. He must have a villain as a competitor. Can competition build bad links that embed our website so we get bad marks by Google or hurt our SEO? I hope he's not asking for evil. I'm going to assume he's not.
Yeah, that's called a negative SEO attack. If that happens, your vendor should be able to identify it, and there would be consideration in that case to disavow if you're seeing like a cadenced amount of negative links pointing to your site.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So reach out. I have never seen that in all my years. I'm
Yeah,
not,
it's
hasn't
it's
happened.
pretty it's pretty rare to see it happen. It does occasionally though.
It's like a full-time job being
Yeah,
negative and gross out there. Nobody has
yeah.
time for that. All right. Kim asked the question, and I can't believe we didn't talk about it. How
Mhm.
important is it to have the same phone number across all citations?
Very important. Very important. You want name, address, phone number to be exactly the same as what you have on Google Business Profile.
Are you sure? What about tracking numbers? And what if
Yeah,
it's just a local one? Because I've
yeah,
heard it's okay. In some companies, or the OEM requires a tracking number. So
yeah.
I
That's
think,
where, if you have two numbers, for example, you can have both on GBP, and then across your citations, if you have to use the tracking number, you can use that. Just make sure it's included as one of those numbers on GBP and you're good to go.
okay. Perfect. Let's see. How often should you optimize or update GBP? Does Google favor your profile more if you post more? Like, do you need to be in there every ding dong day?
Yeah, they don't want to see it go stale. But as far as, usually when it comes to optimizing the profile initially, once you hit all the check boxes, you're good to go until you change your hours or you have holiday hours coming up. Um, but as far as, working with it consistently over time, that's where that post feature comes in. Once a week is enough for that. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, let's see. Product schema. Do we have access? Oh no, hold on. We answered that. I think, you know what? I am going to call it here. A lot. If I haven't answered your question, I'm going to pull them up and read it. Some of them are in the weeds, so I want to make sure I get you a separate question. But Jake, that was fun, and I will never
Ton of fun.
question how much content you have again. You had plenty, and we had more time, and now next time I know what we got to add more of. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. Thanks everybody sticking around with us in the Q&A, and we will see you next time.
Have a great day.
Thanks.